So Tesla stock has been, well, it's been kind of all over the place lately, and we know a lot of you are tuning in to try and make sense of what's going on.
That's right. We're going to be taking a look at some of the factors that have been driving all this volatility and hopefully give you a little bit more insight into what's going on behind the headlines.
I mean, that drop on March 10th, that was a 15% drop.
Mm.
That wasn't just a normal blip in the market. That was actually the steepest single-day decline since all the way back in September 2020.
Yeah, and there are a lot of things going on, but one of the big ones that analysts keep coming back to is Tesla's sales performance.
Okay, sales performance.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin with that?
Well, February 2025 in China, sales dropped by 49%.
Well, hold on. 49%. That's a lot.
It is. And the thing is, it's not just about the number itself. It's about where it's happening. China is a really, really competitive market for electric vehicles. Local companies are coming up, and they're coming up fast. And they often have government support, so it makes it even harder for a company like Tesla to compete.
Yeah, it's like suddenly you've got this homegrown tech giant coming in and taking over a space that you thought you had a pretty good grip on.
Exactly. And it's not just China either. We've seen similar drops in some key European markets, too. Scandinavia, for instance. They're down between 42 and 48%, and France saw a 45% drop just this past January. So it's really starting to look like a broader trend.
And when you see that kind of performance across the board, I mean, that's when investors start getting a little jittery about growth projections and things like market share.
Absolutely. And then you add on top of that the Q4 earnings report from 2024, which wasn't exactly what the market was hoping for.
Yeah, I remember that they missed their earnings projections, right?
They did. Analysts were expecting 76 cents per share and revenue of $27.23 billion. What Tesla actually reported was 73 cents per share and revenue of $25.71 billion.
So they missed on both earnings and revenue.
Yeah.
And I bet the market reacted pretty strongly to that.
Oh, yeah. Immediately after the earnings release, the stock price dropped by about 5%.
Ouch. That's not good.
And to make matters worse, 2024 was the first year that Tesla saw an annual decline in their vehicle deliveries. They only delivered 1.79 million vehicles for the entire year, and even their fourth quarter deliveries fell a little bit short of what people were expecting.
Right. And on top of everything we've already talked about, you have the Elon Musk factor, which always seems to play a role.
The Elon Musk factor, it seems like every time we talk about Tesla, we have to talk about Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it about him that keeps making headlines, and how is that impacting the company?
Well, you know, he's a very prominent figure, and sometimes that can be a double-edged sword. For instance, his position as head of the Department of Government Efficiency under the Trump administration.
Right, the DOGE.
Yes, the DOGE.
Yeah.
That definitely added this whole new layer of political association to Tesla and to Musk himself.
Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, some people thought it could be advantageous, especially when it comes to things like regulations around autonomous vehicles. Yeah, it makes sense that having someone so close to the government could be helpful for navigating those kinds of things.
Right, but at the same time, you have to consider that Musk's political stances haven't exactly been universally popular.
Yeah, and specifically his support for certain far-right parties in Europe, that has definitely rubbed some people the wrong way.
And it's not just about politics either. It's about how public image can have a real impact on a company's value, especially in this age of social media. It's not enough to just have a good product anymore. People are also looking at the values of the people behind those products, and if they don't like what they see, they might take their business elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. It's like this blurring of the lines between a person's personal brand and the company's brand. It's all connected now.
And we actually saw a pretty dramatic example of this backlash with those Tesla takedown protests back in March.
Oh, right. The protests.
Yeah.
There are people who are demonstrating outside of Tesla showrooms all across the country.
Yeah. Over 50 showrooms were targeted on March 1st, 2025. And a lot of analysts are saying that this is a direct result of the political baggage that's now associated with Tesla.
So that's sales figures, earnings, and the whole Elon Musk situation. But where does Tesla stand in the wider electric vehicle market? I mean, how are they holding up against the competition?
Well, the global electric vehicle market is definitely growing. We saw a 21% increase just in January of 2025. But Tesla's recent performance, well, it kind of suggests that they might be losing some ground.
Losing ground to who? I mean, who are the major players that Tesla needs to be worried about?
Well, Chinese electric vehicle brands are really starting to make their presence known in Europe. Their market share went from 5.1% in 2023 to 8.8% in 2024. And that's a pretty clear sign that the competition is heating up.
Yeah, and more competition means more choices for consumers, which can make it tough for any company to stay on top. So let's talk about the analysts. What are they saying about all of this? I mean, they don't always agree, do they?
No, they don't. It's kind of a mixed bag, really. You've got some analysts like Morgan Stanley who are still pretty bullish on Tesla. In fact, they even reinstated Tesla as a top pick on March 3rd, and that actually led to a small 3% increase in the stock price.
So some analysts still see a lot of potential, but then you've got other analysts who are a little more cautious.
Right. Like Bank
Oh,
of America, they actually lowered their price target from $490 down to $380.
whoa, that's a pretty big drop. Why did they do that?
Well, they're concerned about the potential impact of tariffs, increasing the cost of imported parts, or even entire vehicles, which could really hurt Tesla's profit margins.
And if your profit margins are shrinking, then your future earnings potential is shrinking, and that can lead to a lower valuation and a lower stock price.
Exactly. And Baird also cut their price target from $440 down to $370. They're citing the weak sales data that we talked about earlier as their main reason for the downgrade.
So it sounds like the analysts are pretty divided on Tesla's future prospects.
They are. The overall consensus is a hold rating with an average price target of around $326.31. But that average doesn't really tell the whole story because the individual price targets are all over the place. I mean, some analysts have Tesla going as low as $24.86, while others have it going as high as $550. That's a huge difference.
Yeah, it's a pretty big spread.
Hmm.
So beyond just the market and financial factors, are there any internal challenges that Tesla is facing that could be contributing to all of this?
Well, there have been some reports about quality issues with the Cybertruck.
The Cybertruck. You mean that futuristic-looking truck that everybody's been talking about?
Yeah, that one. There have been reports of things like stuck accelerator pedals and even body patterns falling off.
Whoa, that doesn't sound good.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
No.
And even though they've been trying to sweeten the deal with things like free lifetime supercharging, those kinds of quality control issues can really damage a company's reputation and make people think twice about buying their products.
Yeah, when you start hearing stories like that, it makes you wonder about the overall reliability of the brand. But it's not all doom and gloom for Tesla, right? I mean, they've got some exciting things in the pipeline, too.
Absolutely. There's a lot of buzz about the redesigned Model Y, which is supposed to be released sometime in the first half of 2025. And then you've got their long-term goals in areas like artificial intelligence and robotics, which some people think could really pay off big time down the road.
So there are some potential bright spots on the horizon, but we also have to factor in the overall economic and political climate. How are those things playing into Tesla's story?
Well, there's no doubt that macroeconomic concerns like the fear of a recession are definitely playing a role. I mean, those fears were a big part of what drove that huge sell-off on March 10th. And then you've got the whole uncertainty surrounding the Trump administration's tariff plans, which could have a big impact on Tesla's supply chain in Canada and Mexico.
Yeah, it's definitely a complicated situation with a lot of moving parts.
Ah,
So let's wrap up by talking about the technical analysis. What are the charts telling us about Tesla's stock?
Well, some of the technical indicators are suggesting that the stock might be oversold. Right now, the Relative Strength Index, or RSI, is sitting below 30, which is usually a sign that a stock has dropped too far too fast and might be due for a rebound.
So kind of like a rubber band that's been stretched too tight, it's eventually going to snap back.
Yeah, exactly. And we also saw the stock break below the lower Bollinger Band, which is another sign that things might be getting a little too extreme and that a correction could be in order.
So there's a chance that we could see a short-term bounce.
There is, but at the same time, other indicators like the moving averages are still pointing towards a pretty strong downward trend. Tesla's stock price is currently trading well below both its 50-day and 200-day moving averages.
So it sounds like the technical analysis is giving us mixed signals.
It is. It's kind of like a tug of war between the short-term indicators that are hinting at a potential rebound and the longer-term indicators that are still signaling a bearish trend.
Are there any specific price levels that we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, there are a couple of key support levels that analysts have identified around $200 and $138.80. And then on the upside, there's resistance around $265, which is right around where the 200-day moving average is. And then there's another resistance level around $321, which is close to the 50-day moving average.
So a lot of potential turning points to keep an eye on.
And it's also worth noting that historically, Tesla stock has tended to perform a little bit better in March.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh. So maybe there's a little bit of seasonal optimism to be found in the data.
maybe. So To sum it all up, the recent decline in Tesla's stock price has been driven by a combination of factors. We've got weakening sales figures and earnings miss concerns about the CEO's political activities and how that's impacting the brand, increasing competition in the electric vehicle market, and overall economic uncertainty.
And while there are some technical indicators that suggest the stock might be oversold and due for a bounce, it's still a little too early to say for sure whether we've seen a definitive reversal of the downward trend.
So for anyone who's interested in Tesla, I think the key takeaways here are that you really need to stay on top of the latest developments. Keep an eye on the sales figures, watch for new product releases like the redesigned Model Y, see how their work in AI and robotics is progressing, and pay attention to the overall market sentiment.
It's a lot to keep track of for sure. Thank you for walking us through all of this. It's definitely given me a much clearer understanding of what's going on with Tesla.
You're welcome.
And for all of you listening out there, we want to know what you think. How do all of these factors influence your own perspective on Tesla and the broader investment landscape? Let us know in the comments.
We love hearing from you.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please do us a favor and subscribe, like, and leave a comment. It really helps us out. We'll see you next time.
See you then.